Welcome to Oris Sanctuary. The renowned prolific writer Nick Hammond says it best in the book, The Rise of the Nicaraguan Cigars. To make great cigars, you need great tobacco. By the time a Joya de Nicaragua cigar reaches you, it will have passed through more than 300 pairs of hand, and the tobacco used to make it will be at least 4 years old. This is how Joya de Nicaragua makes great tobacco, and ultimately, the most Nicaraguan cigars. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet our guest, Juan Martinez, the Executive President of Joya de Nicaragua. Juan Martinez, welcome to our sanctuary. Let's say that, our sanctuary, and thank you for letting me into your space. This is a very big deal for me. First and foremost, happy 50th anniversary. I know I wasn't invited to the party, but I just came kicking down the door in Nicaragua.
Yes, you have. Thank you for the honor, my friend. And of course, a couple of years ago, it would have been an honor to have you down here to celebrate with us. But we still have a lot more time coming.
Absolutely. Now, which takes me to this. At the early stages of your Joya de Nicaragua, when it was in the process, when a certain wonderful man took over the factory and was trying to rebuild the factory, there was an individual that he brought in. I like to use the word, he summoned him. This guy, his business in Nicaragua at that time was he was a beef importer, serious businessman, and a very trusted businessman, as you and your father would know, because your father worked alongside him. And when he arrived at the factory, he had no idea what he was getting into. He was scared. He was nervous. He's never smoked a cigar. It's not his business. He knows everything but cigar. Beef he exports. Oh, that's his thing. He makes money, and that's why he's there. But he was a bit wary because he was very honest about the fact that he didn't know anything about cigar. But that certain individual that summoned him made it very clear to him. He said to him, one thing you need to know. Cigar, the business of cigar is about people's emotions. I understand what that means, being in a cigar world. I totally understand what that means. This thing is a world of emotions. Can you, in your own words, express to me what that is? What does that mean to you 50 years later? Is that still the case?
It is. It's still the case. And I think that's one of the more interesting driving forces for a lot of us who weren't necessarily born under the shade of a tobacco plant and have a family legacy or heritage of multiple generations of tobacco in our bloods. Some of us, like my father and myself, who have nothing to do with tobacco from our birth, but have got into it as a result of of life, basically getting in our way, or in other words, dictating our own path forward. We live by it. And that particular story that happened actually more than 4 decades ago, way before the cigar industry was what it is today, way before the business for retailers, distributors, for us, what it is today. And most importantly, before cigars were truly enjoyed and appreciated as they are enjoyed today. Even back then, there was this value on what cigars brought to the life of people, to the life of smokers. And I think it has two parts to that story. One, as a cigar lover, I can testify that cigars have been present, have accompanied me through some of the most interesting, some of the most challenging, some of the happiest, and some of the saddest moments in my life. There's always a cigar present through my own life, obviously through my work, but also through my moving forward, through my path through life. People I meet, people I enjoy, people I don't enjoy, people whose company I don't appreciate. Sometimes there's something in common, and we tend to have a cigar in our hands, or a cigar discussion, or a cigar space where we can enjoy. And there is as good friends in our industry say, there is a cigar for everybody, but not every cigar is for everybody. And I would add, there's a cigar for every moment, but not every cigar is for every moment, because cigars have a moment in space, in time, to be enjoyed, to be appreciated, because they're meant to be, in Spanish we call disfrutado, to enhance the pleasure of life in a particular moment, either combined with some drinks, with some great coffee, paired with some great liquor, some great wine, some great beer, and just to enhance that experiential path that we may be going through in that moment. So that's like a consumer. But as a cigar maker, we also have to say that it's even more evident the role that emotions play in our business. Working in tobacco is one of the most challenging things in the world. And working in tobacco from Nicaragua, a small country in the center of the American continent, well known for a history of conflict, of war, of revolutions, of natural catastrophes that we have very often. And selling our products, shipping our products, and selling our products around the world, while tobacco is one of the most regulated products in the world. Nowadays, even more regulated in some countries than even marijuana. It's, when you compare it, there's more strictness to the trade of tobacco and cigars than any other product. So working in this business is challenging, having to deal with nature, the growth of the tobacco plant in the fields, and the influence of nature, of weather, of climate. Then having to age tobacco and wait a long time for this tobacco to be ready, and you really don't know if that tobacco is ultimately gonna be smokable until enough time has gone by, like a great wine, for example, or a great vintage. And then rolling cigar in a craft that is 100% by hand, in which you have the role of people, emotions, the good days, bad days, and now a pandemia, and we have 400 people in our factory that we need to take care of to make sure that their health is preserved and sustained. And making cigars in regular conditions is difficult. Making cigars in a pandemia is even tougher. So all of this makes it like a roller coaster of emotions. So that statement is something that we live by, it's something that we appreciate, and that's something that we experience day in and day out as cigar makers.
I would add to that is, besides it's being a business of emotions, I find there is a certain energy, there's a certain spirit in the process. And you said it very well. I like to use the word interconnected. Everything is interconnected in life. So, talking about emotions, cigar to me and my wife is something very powerful and personal. I met my wife in the cigar world.
Wow, that's
my wife was introduced to me to one of my best friend and the brothers of the Leaf, who actually took me to Cuba for the first time. This guy goes to Cuba every year for his birthday. Very young man, about the same age as you. And what's interesting, we had about 4 years ago, we usually have our breakfast smoke on St. James every morning. Every Saturday morning, we would meet for coffee. And in the middle of the smoke, he gets a text from his girlfriend. He said, "Is Oris single?" Now, here's what's crazy about that. She knew where he was. And she knew he was with me smoking on a Saturday morning. That's what we do. That relationship, the decision of that relationship, I made that decision over a cigar.
That's powerful.
And I remember when we went to Cuba, because I met her before the Cuba trip, and he said to me, "So, are you sure about this?" Now, we've never spoken since the introduction. And I said, and I remember, I had a custom roll, and I said, yeah. We never spoke until the day I got engaged to her at the Cigar Club. And what's interesting, those same people that were there with me when we got married. And they're still in my life today. And during the pandemic, we all stayed connected and still do. So we have, as we speak, we have our cigar days in our calendars. Our wives, girlfriends, everybody knows. The reason why many people respect the art of smoking is for me personally, is a lot of the hard work that goes into it. And I want you to confirm this with me. And this was very beautiful when the ambassador of Nicaragua said to me on the night of the Cigar Smoker of the Year, she said, "Oris, this cigar goes through the hands of 300 people." 300 people.
From the moment the seed is planted to the moment it reaches your hand, more than 300 people have been involved in crafting this product. From planting the seed to transplanting the seedlings, to harvesting the plant, to curing the leaves, to classifying, to fermenting the leaf, to storing it, to rolling the cigars, to every single step of the way. It's only hands. It's all human handmade. There is no single machine involved other than a knife that we call the chaveta and a tester. We call it draw master to test the draw of the cigar. But it's purely a humanistic product inherently, because the way it's made and because the way it's enjoyed. And in a way, and just to connect with what you're saying, it is ultimately a conduit, a connection between human beings, people who are in the fields down here, to the people who are enjoying it in the Soho Whiskey Club and Cigar Club in London, or anywhere in the world, in Hong Kong, in Australia, in India, in the Middle East, in Europe, anywhere in the world. It's a conduit, it's a connection between you and the people who were involved. So when you think about it, it's a very powerful product, a product that is the result of a lot of time, dedication, commitment, great deal of care. The only ingredients that are involved in making the cigar are natural tobacco with no chemicals, no additives, no external ingredients, a little bit of moisture that is necessary to keep the fermentation process alive, time, and the hands of the people. And if you want to sound cliche and romantic, a lot of love is involved in making each cigar. But that's the truth, and that's very simple. The irony is that we enjoy this product by lighting it up and turning into ash, absorbing it, becoming one with the product, becoming one with the smoke, becoming one with those people who were responsible in making it. So it's quite a unique experience when you think about it. And I personally haven't found any other product that can translate that humanistic aspect other than cigars. It's a pure enjoyment.
For those of you who are probably watching this show, first of all, I thank you for tuning in. I've been gifted a book by the House of Joya, Nicaragua. And this is this book, The Rise of the Nicaraguan Cigar, Cinco Décadas, is their 50th anniversary book. And I believe also there's another one called Cigaragua by Marcel Langdicus.
Now,
That one is in Dutch. That was in. That's taken from Dutch. Our friends at Van Horsen, who is our
Yes.
importer in Dutch, they did an adventure
Yes.
strip, and they created this concept of Cigaragua. That's the true origin of Nicaraguan cigars. They even have a shop dedicated exclusively to Nicaraguan cigar in Amsterdam. It's a great testament to the work of the Nicaraguan people.
believe it or not, the store you're talking about in Amsterdam, Cigaragua, was the first store I found out about cigars from Nicaragua. I thought it was the bravest thing any man has ever done. And he actually walked me. I spent almost 2 to 3 hours with him in that store, and I was lost. That's where I found my father. I mean, you name it. Endless cigar. And he told me about, of course, you guys. He said, you know what? These are the guys to really look at. And I thought he was very brave.
He was. He continues to be brave. He's a great supporter.
Oh
of the
my
cause.
goodness. And you know what? I love Cuba. I love my Dominican Republic. But I have to say something that he said, and also he's made clear in this book. And I would love to hear your take on this. He says, Cuba has the reputation, but Nicaragua has the cigars. I think that's a very bold statement. And you know what? Forgive me for what I'm about to say. He walks the talk, because when he first opened that store, people thought he was mad. Everything pure Nicaragua, and I understood why he did that. I would love to hear your take on that.
He does have a point. Nicaragua has nowadays become the leading cigar making country in the world, not only by the quantity of cigars that we make. The best cigar makers in the world are based in Nicaragua, specifically in Estelí, our city, which is located in the northern part of Nicaragua. And not only by the quantity, but also by the quality. Every single cigar industry publication or official media can testify that over the past 5 years or more, at least 5 to 6 out of the 10 cigars that are considered the best cigars in the world are made in Nicaragua, by Nicaraguan hands, by a cigar maker from Nicaragua. It's a great testament to that. And that hasn't been from one day to the other. It's been more than 30 years in the making, in which we've had ups and downs, struggles, challenges, and a lot of great learning experiences. And what Nicaragua does have, it's a community, a strong community of cigar makers who dedicate their life and their livelihood to developing not only the best tobacco possible from the fields, but also the best talented cigar makers. And that's something that the consumers can testify. Just to give you an idea, the United States is the biggest market of premium cigars in the world. Of course, it's the biggest market for many things, but it's particularly for cigars. And the last year, 2 out of 3 cigars that were imported in the country came from Nicaragua. Imagine that. So most of the cigars that are being enjoyed currently in the United States, and nowadays more and more all over the world, are coming from Nicaragua in more than 90 countries around the world. That doesn't mean, though, that the rest of the countries don't have great tobacco, don't have great cigars. I can talk about the great cigars of Cuba. They have a beautiful tobacco. They have flavorful, the aroma of the Cuban tobacco. It's unquestionable. The same with the Dominican Republic. They have great tobacco, and they have great tobacco cigar makers and processors. And we use a lot of Dominican tobacco in our own blends. You can find great cigar makers in Honduras too, and even in Mexico. And in Costa Rica is emerging as an interesting cigar making country. I think each country brings its own identity, its own profile, its own character to the enjoyment of cigars. And one of the things that we promote, particularly in places where people are ingrained that only Cuban cigars are worth their time, we try to promote for people to try, to enjoy, to open up their minds, their hearts, and their palates to a different experience. As I say, each cigar has its own character. In fact, each cigar coming from each factory has its own character. We might be using the same tobaccos, but the way we work it, the way we inject our energy and our love might be different, giving that particular cigar a different personality, a different character. So I think one of the biggest blessings that cigar smokers have today is having the options, the amount of options, the diversity of flavor profiles, of intensities, of complexities, of combinations. And that's one of the greatest attributes. Nicaragua has played a very important role in that sense, because it has been from Nicaragua where we started experimenting with tobaccos from different origins. If you go to our factory in Estelí, you can find tobaccos from basically all around the world, from Brazil, from Peru, from Colombia, from Costa Rica, from Honduras, from Mexico, from the Dominican Republic, from the United States, Cameroon, Indonesia. All of those are tobaccos that we use to blend our profiles at Joya de Nicaragua. So I think that indeed, Nicaragua does have the cigars, and nobody can question that.
Is it because also you guys spend a lot of time bringing new rollers into the game? You have a lot of the older rollers like Don Leone coaching and working with the younger rollers and are present. Because one of the problems I saw in places in the other regions in my travels and being fortunate to spend time there is they were concerned about, their thing was, listen, Oris, we're praying that a lot of the younger generation really step on board, because our fathers could only roll till they can't do this anymore. These guys are going on 75, they're going on 80, and then not only that, a lot of them kind of move into the States to work. Connecticut to work in the other factories that kind of run, with the illusion that something great, or maybe a cigar will probably be named after them. So would you say with Nicaragua, you guys have an amazing, from what I'm seeing, an amazing system, and you have records, you have rollers who, pancheros, people who have approved themselves through their work. For example, the story where a 38-year-old Joya de Nicaragua cigar was gifted and wasn't open and was sent back by the owner's daughter 38 years later. And when that box was open, that proved the power and the strength of Nicaragua. So your conversation and what we're saying right now, on our friend from Nicaragua, it has a lot of backing. Can you explain that? And that was the days when they didn't have any Movida. There was no Movida. That box wasn't like a proper sealed proof box. We're talking 38 years ago. The box came, and run me through that.
Well, let me first address the let's say the true, from my own personal opinion, the true energy that drives this. And I think it has to do, in the first case, from the leadership. I think Nicaragua has some of the best cigar minds, cigar hands, and cigar palates in the world. People who have come from many places, from Cuba, from the Dominican Republic, from the United States, and Nicaragua as ourselves, who are driven by passion for this industry, whose livelihood are dedicated day in, day out, to looking for that perfect leaf and that perfect combination of leaves and that perfectly rolled tube of leaves that becomes a cigar, with that perfect timing, with that perfect presentation. And that's truly a testament to the work of, I would say, quite a few cigar makers. And I can run a big list of people whom I respect and admire because of how they dedicate their creativity and their energy. And as you an artist would relate, they are all artists in their own trade, and they dream and they live and they breathe cigars and tobacco. Families like the Plasencia family, like the Oliva family, Abdel A.J. Fernandez, the great people at Drew Estate led by Jonathan Drew, and I can name quite a few other cigar makers whose energy is the one who not only pulls and push this their own companies, but the whole industry, changing the game, changing the perspective, building brands and building relationships with clients in the United States and all over the world. And from then on, that energy translates into the talent that is developed, not only in the fields, but also in the rolling tables. We train people to be passionate about what we do. Of course, as you say, nowadays it's harder to retain the talent of those craftsmen and craftwomen who dedicate their talent to making cigars with their own hands. As modern times gives us, the new generations have a shorter time span, shorter lifespan for particular trade. Now we are preparing ourselves so that instead of having our 30, 40-year-old or 50 years of experience roleros and boncheras, as we at Joya Nicaragua have had historically, nowadays we understand that boncheros and roleras might want to dedicate maybe 5 up to 10 years of their life to this craft. Not as much, because they are exposed and they have aspirations to grow, to educate themselves, to become lawyers, to become doctors, to become accountants, to become professionals, and even move up in their life. The beauty about the modern times is that it has opened up the world. It has opened up the doors and the windows of the world to the rest of the world. So even in a smaller country like Nicaragua, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter your economic standing, it doesn't matter your profession, it doesn't matter if you don't speak English or any other language, if you only speak Spanish. If you have a phone, access to a phone, then you have the whole world in your hands. And people, we see how the rest of the world lives and how they enjoy life. And we aspire also to be part of that modern world. So we recognize that it's a natural process, it's a natural evolution of human beings, of wanting to grow maybe faster than our ancestors, than our fathers, but aspire to more. And I think that also impregnates a little bit of interesting energy. Of course, challenges, but also a lot of interesting energy and creativity to our trade, because it forces us to be creative, to attract, to train, to develop, and to solve those challenges moving forward. Now, when we land to the story of that 38-year-old box that you mentioned, and it's quite interesting because it's a testament of that connectivity that you mentioned earlier. A connectivity of humans, but also how time plays a role in this business. This was a box that was recovered. A few years ago, my father received an email from the wife of an actor called Dean Jones. At that time, we didn't know who he was, and she didn't introduce herself as the wife of the actor. We later on went to learn who he was. But she basically was saying that she had found an old box of cigars in her husband's studio, that it was never opened, that it was received by her husband as a gift from a director. That if we were interested in getting it back. So my father said yes. And it only cost us the shipping from her place to us. And when we received the box, it was a great surprise to find out that this box was originally owned by this actor called Dean Jones, who received it from his director after filming the movie Snowball Express. And we had the certification signed by his representative saying that was an authentic box. He never smoked cigars, so he never opened the box. And we received the box, and it was intact, in original conditions. Of course, age had done its work. The box was aged, the cellophane was aged, and the cigars were aged. And we opened up the box, and the cigars were in perfect conditions. Only 3 of those cigars had been smoked, and they smoked beautifully. Mild, because the tobacco back then was milder, smooth, creamy, and with a little bit of those aging notes that time gives great tobacco. And this is a box from the 1970s. Now, there's a twist to that story, in that it was opened by my father, by Leonel, Mario, and a group of other people from the factory, including one gentleman called Alberto, who is currently our head of production, and who has been our head of production at the factory for quite a while now. So this gentleman, Alberto, who is our current head of production, and he's been our head of production for a while, he was inspecting the box, and he turned it upside down, and there was a code, and suddenly he gets emotional, and they ask him what's happened. And that box those cigars in that box back then had registered the name of the person who had made those cigars, and it was him. So 38 years later, when he had started before as a young bonchero and rolero in the 1970s, very, very young, he had made those cigars, and they had returned to him in the pristine condition. So imagine the level of emotions to get after those cigars were in the hands of how many people had flown all over the world and had landed in the hands of this popular actor, and then getting them back. It was such a powerful moment, and that sort of showcases the power of this product, of this singular product that transforms the lives of thousands of people in the case of Nicaragua, because there are more than 45,000 direct employees who are involved in making Nicaraguan cigars. When you add the thousands of other cigar makers around the world, but when you add the millions of cigar lovers whose lives are touched by that product, that by the end of the evening or early in the morning, as in your case with your friends, you light them up. You light up that cigar just to be there, to be present, to be enjoyed, to be with yourself and with the cigar and with the great company of others. So this is the true power of this singular product.
This is such a beautiful story, because when I received the book from you guys, via our mutual brother, the Leaf Ricardo, and I read that, I was like, wow. My trip to Cigaragua many years back, and my friend telling me, try something new, open your palate, put away all your beautiful Cubans, age them, and try something new. Then fast forward, meeting Ricardo, receiving both books, and really traveling through studying you guys. And not only doing that, but I was very fortunate to try a lot of your cigars. And then when I read that particular story, I was like, whoa, this is phenomenal. Because usually most cigars, to be honest with you, unless you have the Boveda, as we talked about, you're not gonna get that in this day and age. And it wasn't kept in a humidor. This guy, this actor, wasn't a smoker, so he put the box, just left the box. And what's interesting about it is that box could have easily been auctioned for a whole lot of money.
It could have, yes.
But she didn't do that.
No.
So talking about interconnectedness
we
and the
save
spirit.
We save it as a token of remembrance, reminding ourselves that this product and this brand, Joya Nicaragua, is bigger than ourselves. It's bigger than the messengers that we are as shepherds of the brand and shepherds of the company. That we need to take care of it, we need to protect it, we need to cherish it, and we need to do our best efforts to make sure that people recognize it, that people value it. Because ultimately, it's not about the brand itself. It's not about the name. It's not about the logo. It's about the talent and the dedication of those hundreds of people that are behind making this cigar. You know, when you think about great products, craft products, like I would say, you know, a great Scotch or a great whiskey or a great bourbon or even a great wine, there's a great hard work involved. But generally, you leave that product to age and to, you know, do its process by itself, possibly in a big tanks or barrels, and time plays an important role. In the case of tobacco, time plays a fundamental role, but the most important role is played by the people. There is cigars for me are the definition of hand craftsmanship, and as we've spoken before, we said. Each cigar that you enjoy, that you light up, that you appreciate, be it a cigar that you enjoy or a cigar that you don't enjoy, because not every cigar you will enjoy, it's a connection between you, the cigar lover, and the people who made that cigar. The emotions, as I said earlier, the emotions of those people are impregnated in the work that they do. The amount of pressure that the bonchero and the rolera put in that cigar determines how much you how much draw you will have. It might be too tight, it might be too loose. The aesthetic of the cigar, the quality of the blend itself, so it can give you the profile that you're looking for, is the responsibility of an individual, a woman or a man, and they will transmit their particular emotions, their feelings in one moment in time in that product they are making with their hands. And that's the power of this craftsmanship that we call cigars. My father, as I said earlier, my family doesn't come from a long tobacco lineage. He actually was, after his studies, he was to become an academic. Originally, he was to become a priest. Eventually, he let that idea go by. But after that, he came into the revolution, the Nicaraguan revolution from 1979 to 1990. He went through a very dramatic civil war and all through the political complications of that era. And in the 1990s, he came out of the Nicaraguan revolution with a lot of energy and enthusiasm and hope. And he found in the tobacco world, although he enjoyed cigars before, he enjoyed pipes and everything, he had no idea about making cigars or growing tobacco. He came into the business in 1992, eventually acquired the company in 1994, and started rebuilding it. Because by 1990, Nicaragua was a war-torn country. Esteli was a city in the northern part of Nicaragua that was very far away, lack of communication, lack of basic services. It was a complicated place to operate back then. And he decided to risk it all. He didn't have a lot of money back then, but then eventually he found the resources to support his endeavor, and he started working. And he was one of the pioneers of the second birth or second genesis of the Nicaraguan cigar industry. Thanks to his leadership, a lot of other companies came to Nicaragua and started establishing themselves here and started building what we know now it is the Nicaraguan cigar industry. And indeed, he had put his studies in pause, and after he had dedicated to rebuilding the factory, he went back to obtain his PhD degree in economics by the end of by the year 2000. So it took him almost 30 years to obtain his degree. But one of the things that he continued to teach us, because a correction to you, he continues to be at the head of the company. I'm just following suit. He continues to be the inspiration, the leadership, the face and the head behind the company, or I would say on the front of the company. Every day is a learning experience with him. He has taught all of us in the company the meaning of dedication, the meaning of commitment, the meaning of working hard and being realistic of our own capacities or our own abilities, but at the same time being patient, being aware that time plays its role, not only in cigars, but also when we face challenges. It was thanks to his wisdom that we have been able to survive some of the toughest challenges that we have faced, not only as business, but as Nicaraguans too, over the past 25 years, including natural disaster, natural catastrophe, lack of tobacco availability, lack of market, lack of demand, political turmoil, all of this. It's quite an inspiration, and he continues to be quite healthy, quite vigorous, and quite enthusiastic about cigars. He's the biggest fan of Joya Nicaragua cigars there is. He smokes about 5 to 7 cigars per day, continues to do so, and he's the biggest critic also. And we aspire to one day being able to fulfill his vision of, upholding Joya Nicaragua and Nicaraguan cigars to the top standards in the world.
Well, thank you for that, because there's another downside no one talks about. You had the boom, and everybody was going crazy. People came in, investments came in, then all of a sudden, the world couldn't get enough of the cigars, and some of the cigars started to be, they were being rushed out there, like prematurely, and all of a sudden, boom, it collapsed. Can you take us through that journey, what happened? Because that was about the time your father was fighting for his life to keep, the House of Joya alive. People don't know. I mean, here we are. We're talking about this romantic, beautiful, the Hollywood story, but this is the story, and how you guys walked out of this to where we are today, where your cigars are respectfully, it's not immature, because like I said, it's a tough business. Not everybody could jump into this industry. I mean, I listened to John Drew's story, how he said, man, I lost everything. He said, and he's just as honest as they come. He said, I lost everything. I put my whole life into this thing. And it sounds very similar and parallel to what had happened a couple of years ago. As then, to top it up, you had the disaster. You had the...
Yes. Yes. So in the middle of the 1990s, we had the first boom of the modern cigar era. It sort of started around 1994, 1995. And there are a few reasons why it happened, but it was an overwhelming demand of Nicaraguan cigars. Back in the day, the internet was limited, there was no social media, so the experience was completely different. But there was an overwhelming demand, and a lot of the great cigar brands and houses that you know today emerged during that boom. And every cigar that was made was immediately shipped because the demand was so voracious that people were grabbing the cigars. However, it was an artificial boom and eventually had an end, and the bubble burst around 1998, and the market collapsed. Suddenly, there was no demand for cigars, and you were stuck with thousands of pounds of tobacco leaf and thousands of cigars rolled that nobody wanted. Parallel to that, in the end of 1998, Nicaragua suffered one of its worst natural catastrophes. Hurricane Mitch, Category 5 hurricane, stationed itself in the northern part of Nicaragua and devastated a whole tobacco growing region from Jalapa, Estelí. It devastated the infrastructure. Thousands of lives were lost as a consequence of that. So by the end of the millennia for Nicaragua was a big challenge. Not only had we lost the driving force of the economy, of the tobacco economy, but we have lost not only lives and infrastructure, but the core of the business in the region. And that was a tough spot. So imagine, beginning 2000, you have to rebuild from scratch, reduce labor force, reduce market. Reputation was shambled for a lot of companies and brands. A lot of them didn't survive the end of the boom because, unfortunately, their brands couldn't withstand those challenges. And that was part of the hardest learning experiences for him and for the company. From then on, we've tried to behave and act with that reality in mind, with that reality and with those that wisdom in mind of having learned from the experience. So even now, today, that we are finding ourselves in a growth period for cigars that has never been experienced in the past 25 years, we always have that in the back of our minds, to be responsible, to be respectful, to be good shepherds of our brand, and to be good shepherds of our people, because we need to protect the livelihood and the well-being of our people, not only because of the pandemic, but also because of the driving forces of the market that a lot of times can be ruthless, and we need to protect human well-being above anything else.
Wow. And it's funny because now you guys are being blessed by a lot of the elders in the company, because many of these people stuck with the House of Joya even when nobody was even getting paid. People just showed up.
Yes.
Employees just showed up and just hanged around.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, we could run through the list of these guys all day long. It's unbelievable. Don Leon, all these guys, and I'm just really amazed how you're talking about leadership and talking about the shepherd. In Buddhism we have this term of the mentor and disciple. I can see a lot of that at the House of Joya. Can you explain that process? You have the mentor and disciple. So you guys seem to have someone shadowing than somebody.
Constantly.
You don't just give them in a position.
Constantly.
Yeah, you have this.
Constantly.
That's very rare in the cigar world.
It is. It's very real, and it's something that it's inherent in what we do. This is a legacy product. There's a lot of tradition and heritage involved in the craftsmanship of cigars, and a lot of traditions that you need to respect also, from the quality of the product to the way you promote and sell and identify with the products that you represent. And in my case, for example, I've been mentored not only by my father but also by a group of people from whom I've learned everything that I know, and from whom I continue to learn every day. And I'm humbled to be able to be their student. Lionel, for example, the person who you mentioned, who is now semi-retired but continues to visit our factory every single day, and he's there greeting every single employee, every single worker from the factory every day. He's there, even though he doesn't necessarily have to. He's there because his life, his heart, his soul is tied with this company. But one of the things that he said when I started working at Joya Nicaragua, and perhaps one of the things that drove me to dedicate my life to this trade, was that he said very plainly and clearly, our aspiration should be that any person that comes to work in this business, be it growing tobacco, processing tobacco, or rolling cigar, has to aspire to be better and to have a better life once they retire. And we cannot force them to be steady, to be without movement, without growth. And that every single person that comes out of our factory should have a substantially better life than when they came in. Be it a woman, be it a man, be it a family member, they need to have a much better life and well-being than when they began. And that's sort of our aspiration. Our driving force for Joya Nicaragua is our people. And then our people on the other side, who are our cigar consumers and our cigar smokers.
How did you prepare to take over? How did you prepare to step in while your father kind of stepped back a bit, considering the fact that this wasn't something you studied for? This wasn't this wasn't something you were interested in, from my knowledge.
Yes.
How did you transform that?
Well, I wasn't prepared, to be honest. When I graduated from school, as every good young enthusiast has, I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to build my own legacy. This was my father's project, so I really wanted to do my own thing. And eventually, I started accompanying him more and more, and started seeing the true nature of his impact. Not only were they employing more than 400 people in one single factory, but also they were sharing their talent with all over the world. More than 30 countries were importing our cigars at that time. And it was about connecting with the rest of the world. And I said, you know what? Anything that I can do will never be as powerful as what I can contribute to this collective of people. And that's when I decided to jump in. I started slowly, to be honest. I started learning the process, enjoying the cigars, and eventually I saw myself head deep into this ocean of greatness that is tobacco and that is cigars. And here I am, 12, 13 years later after I began, and continue learning every single day, enjoying every single moment, enjoying the company of our tobacco suppliers, of our friends, and of our clients around the world. And it's been quite an interesting and enjoyable experience for me.
You talk about there's something you mentioned, and I want to ask you how that's going for you. You said it's about being focused and modernizing Joya de Nicaragua while keeping one eye on tradition, history, and expertise. Wow. You have 50 years now. You're just, let's say, 53. Is this vision of yours something for 2072? For the next
and beyond
5 decades and beyond? And yes. How has that been working for you? Because that's a big statement, and I think it's a very brave statement, and and I'm going to be very honest with you. It's something I personally have always been told to not plan my life for today, but plan my life way after I'm gone. So how would you, you know, again, you know, that's my Buddhist philosophy at the back of my head. Also, you know, keep me going. And Don Leon, I'm sure, is one of my favorite characters, as well as your father and you, because you're very, very passionate. But back to that question, how is that? Because that's a big statement.
When we turned 50, we saw those
Yes.
initial 50 years as our first baby steps in this legacy, as a company, as a collective. And when we turned 50, we were not focusing on the past 50 years. And if you read the book, you'll find a lot of quotes on the next 50 years, because we were seeing ourselves
Correct.
as part of this evolution. And when we say ourselves, I mean the company, I mean the brand, not us personally, because
Yeah.
we're only messengers,
Yes.
temporary messengers
Exactly.
in this process. And that's why we focus a lot on the brand and on the experience versus our personal names, because that's one of the main driving forces. And we have three primary, I would call them driving principles on what we do. First is unrivaled quality, a quality beyond everything that we do. The always is always a humanistic approach, meaning that we cannot forget that the human aspect is ever present in what we do. And the third one is creative evolution. And one of the biggest challenges that we have as cigar makers is, one, trying to preserve our tradition as cigar makers, because the truth is this is a very artisanal product, an artisanal way of doing things by hand, natural tobacco product, no chemicals, no additives, no machines involved. However, we do face a lot of challenges in the modern times. One of them is competition. We are pressured constantly by newcomers. Consumers are wanting new things, creative things, different profiles, different alternatives, want more options. So we are invited by consumers to evolve in the way we make our cigars, the way we promote our cigars, the way we brand our cigars, and the way we communicate, connecting directly with consumers through social media, for example. Nowadays, before, in the past, people would buy boxes of cigars. One same cigar, one whole box. Now people buy the equivalent of a box of cigars with different varieties, different sizes, different brands, different origins. So we need to adapt to that. But the second challenge has to do with more of a external force for survival, and has to do with regulation. Unfortunately, tobacco is frowned upon all over the world. So we need to adapt ourselves to comply with all of the challenges that regulation imposes, from reporting, from taxing, from all of the requirements that nowadays are evident in the regulation of tobacco products, including cigars. So we need to adapt ourselves. So those are some of our driving forces that will guarantee that in 50 years or 100 years, whoever is in charge continues to take the flag of that legacy brand that is Joya Nicaragua. We've been instrumental in building this new outstanding origin of cigars, Nicaraguan-made cigars, and we hope that we are able to continue in that path moving forward in the future, and Nicaragua continues to lead the way in the manufacturing of cigars for the enjoyment of cigar lovers around the world.
Wow. So, you've just touched on moving forward 2072, which is the next 5 decades. In your hand right now, I'm so happy that we dealt with the people, because we need to understand this is a business of emotions. I'm in the arts. We constantly deal with emotions. So, and one of the most beautiful thing about cigar smokers, I have yet to meet a cigar smoker that lacks emotional intelligence. I've yet to meet one. It's people say, when people ask, what is it about cigar? What's so amazing about it? I said, to be honest, it's the one thing personally for me that breaks my ego and takes me right down and has me thinking about my every move. But that being said,
that's powerful, though. That's very powerful.
Would you say, that being said, would you say the same thing, that this is an art? This is an art form?
Yes, it is an art form, but also it's for me it has some a spiritual component to this art form, and I think we've spoken before about being on this space in this cigar community. Nowadays, virtual most of the time because of where we're living. But when you have the opportunity to be in a physical space with cigar lovers, the barriers come down. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do, if you're the CEO of a big corporation or a janitor. You're sitting there going through that same experience, that moment in time yourself with a cigar. Of course, there are some people who like to showcase more what they smoke, but most of the people, most regular smokers, are just there to enjoy that cigar and to create this bond with the smoke and with the rest of the people. And I've had some of my greatest experiences happen at cigar lounges around the world. You know, being with a priest, together with a porn movie director, together with a janitor, together with a CEO, all of them sharing in the same space. That, by the way, that was in the UK. I wouldn't say the place, but it was a cigar club in the UK. It was quite unique because everybody was sharing a little bit of their life in that space, in that moment, in that connection. So the spiritual component of that is you know, it's unique. It's unique. It's very hard because this is a product that you enjoy, but it doesn't necessarily change your behavior. It doesn't affect your cognitive skills. It doesn't affect your physical skills, because you can enjoy other products. A lot of them, might get you a little bit drunk, a little bit aggressive, or a little bit passive. Yeah. Cigars don't have that effect, other than the intrinsic relaxation and smoothing down of your own well-being that generate, but without affecting your physical and motor skills, which is a great thing, because you're able to create community with like-minded or not like-minded people and enjoy that moment.
And I would like us to end on something very, very, very important and trivial. You're smoking numero uno.
Yes.
That is your diplomatic cigar.
Yes.
And would this be the same one that was created for the White House during the Nixon era?
No. Well, no. There are two parts to this story. So the first one is that during the 1970s, Joya Nicaragua became the official cigar of the White House. In the post-Cuban embargo era, Nicaragua wasn't a big cigar producer, but Joya Nicaragua was already making cigars for the U.S. market. So the sommelier of the White House found in Joya Nicaragua a great replacement and alternative to the Cuban cigars, and brought it to the White House to make it the official cigar of the White House. 1 second, because my daughter is just coming from school and she's always curious about coming. Amor.
Oh.
Ya. ¿De qué? Del portón. Está ahí guindado. Está guindado donde están las llaves. Sorry about that. So
that's okay.
We'll continue. So it became the official cigar of the White House until the Ford administration. It was the cigar that it was given to official dignitaries and presidents who came to the White House in official visits, and then were greeted in the green room for cognac, a scotch, a whiskey, and then they would light up a Joya Nicaragua. That happened until 1973, 1974, with the Ford administration, where smoking was banned altogether in the White House. Fast forward to the 2000s, and the Nicaraguan government always enjoyed bringing gifts to their visits, their official visits. They could bring coffee, which Nicaragua is very well known for, chocolates, and other Nicaraguan products, and included cigars. It was a gift, a courtesy gift. And they would ask us, can you give us some cigars to bring? And we'll give them anything that we had back then. Eventually, we started thinking, if these cigars are coming to the hands of kings, emperors, diplomats, ambassadors, we want to make sure that we make the best possible cigar. First of all, for that person that we don't know who that is. But even if we don't know who that is, we want to make sure that they have the best of the best. So we crafted this special cigar for the diplomatic delegations that would take in their gifts to Russia, China, Australia, the United States, Canada. And when they came to Nicaragua, we also gave them. It was a special cigar that wasn't for sale. It was made just for this gift. So now in 2018, we're turning 50 years, and our distributor in the United States requires us that we have something special, because we're going to hold all of these celebrations. We're going to hold events, special events to commemorate the 50 years of Nicaraguan cigars, and they wanted us to have something special. So they asked us to bring the cigars as a special gift, and we bring it to these celebratory events in the United States. And it happened that one of the most influential bloggers in the industry, Half Wheel, got their hands on the cigar, and they smoked it, and they enjoyed it so much that they named it the best cigar of the year in 2018. Now, we were not ready for that, because this cigar was not made to be sold or to be promoted. So immediately after that, a lot of people wanted to try the cigar. So we have to brand it as Joya Nicaragua Número Uno. And if you see the colors of the band are allude to the Nicaraguan identity, blue and white and gold and all that. So this is how this cigar came to be. It's a very unique and special cigar. And for me, one of my of course, favorite cigars. So in 2018, we also celebrated with a special brand. It's called Cinco Décadas, the one that you hold in your hand. And that particular cigar that you have is special for two reasons. One, that shape and that format, the diadema, is the first shape of a cigar that was rolled in Nicaragua. We dusted off the molds, old molds, and we recovered that particular shape that was the first type of cigar that was rolled in Nicaragua. And the second thing that is important about that cigar is that the tobaccos contained in that blend are aged for more than 10 years. And I can say this with truth, because when I came in to work with my father in 2008, the company was turning 40 years old. And we didn't do anything big. We didn't bring any new products to the market or anything. And it was a shame, because we were not able to showcase properly that important milestone for the company. So then, at that moment, I told them, let's try to build for the future. And we went into our bodegas of tobacco, our warehouses of tobacco, and we basically marked the bundles of tobacco that we were going to be using in the future for a very special occasion. They were tobaccos from recent crops in 2008, and we saved those tobacco leaves for a period of 10 years. They aged in a warehouse for about 10 years so that we could use them in this very unique and special and limited and rare cigar that we call Cinco Décadas. That is a testament not only to Joya Nicaragua as a 50-year-old company back then, but also to the origin of the Nicaraguan cigar industry, and to all of the people who were involved in creating this industry, from the founders, from the workers, up to eventually my father, that has one of the cigars named after him. So each cigar is named after an important milestone of the Nicaraguan cigar industry, and that is Cinco Décadas for you.
Oh wow! Thank you so much, and we are going to end on this note. Juan Martinez, this is just the beginning. I mean, if I had my way, trust me, I just like Cuba, just like Dominican Republic, I will be in the Nicaragua.
Next show we're gonna be filming it in Nicaragua.
Oh, I promise you, that's the plan. I am actually looking forward to that, and I can't wait. I can't wait. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
It's been a great honor to be in your sanctuary, my friend.
Again, let's keep doing this for the people. Let's keep spreading the love. Let's keep really, smoking and keep transcending and just keep flourishing in a whole different atmosphere. Because I tell you what. My greatest advice for most young men today, you want to keep a great relationship and you want to keep your friends, I say light one of these. I guarantee you. Thank you so much.
Oris.
I appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure, my friend.
You too. Until next time, Oris Sanctuary, Juan Martinez, the House of Joya, I salute you.
Thank you, my friend.